Thanks so much for coming today. And just so I don't mess up his quote, but remember what Mary Oliver said. What will you do with your one wild and precious life? Well, the answer may not be quite as linear a path and straight to what you might have in your head as you dream of what you're going to do with your biology career. So we are very fortunate to have speaking to us today 3 recent PLU alumni who are on that path, wherever that path is going to turn out. And they are working biology-related jobs right now. Not necessarily careers, but they are on their way. So they are relatively recent graduates, so they have just recently gone through the terror of looking for a job and thinking a lot about where they are headed. So I hope you will give them a good welcome, and I'm going to turn things over to Catherine Swearingen, who is new to our Career Connections office, and she will be running this operation. But Cassandra, Dex, and Stina are here, and give them a big hello.
What I want to do is I want to keep this more of a conversation, but I am going to ask our panelists some questions, and they will give us their responses, and then hopefully that'll prompt some questions on your part, and so please feel free to start asking those questions. All right? Okay, well, I'm going to start by asking our panelists to introduce yourselves. Give us when you graduated 2012. Great, all right. And then, obviously biology, right? But you were a chemistry. Okay, so talk about your major and where you're currently working and what your title is.
All right. I'll start us off. I'm Stina. I'm currently a naturalist with an organization over across the bridge in Gig Harbor called Harbor Wild Watch. I don't know how in-depth we want to, or what do you...
Well, we can talk about that.
I'll tell you what a naturalist is later. It's really fun and awesome. But yeah, graduated with a bio degree and a chemistry minor. So.
And I'm Rebecca, but most of you guys probably know me as Bex. And I graduated here last year with a chemistry major, concentration in biochemistry, and a biology minor. I'm currently working at Sterling Reference Laboratories. It is a drug testing lab. We contract with Department of Corrections, Department of Transportation, and pain management clinics. And I'm an LCMS technician there. I run a liquid chromatography mass spectroscopy instrument to my drug screens.
Cool.
I'm Cassandra. I graduated last year with them in my Bachelor's of Science in Biology. I didn't get any cool minors or anything. I studied abroad twice, so I didn't get a chance to that. I currently work at Seattle Children's Hospital as an ICU technician. Pretty cool.
All right. So, what drew you to the position that you have now? Is it something that you had always thought that you would do, or did things change as you went along? And then how'd you get there?
I guess start again. How did I become a naturalist? Is a good question. I think a lot of it was connections and having a basic interest in more ecology-based bio and sustainability. So what we do at Harbor Wild Watch is we do a lot of environmental education. So right now we're in classrooms teaching kids. We have 19 different lessons we go through about watersheds or wetlands or how to identify the skull, or I don't know, do a lot of different things with that. And then in the summer when everyone's out of school, we go on the beach. And so I think part of my background in field work was really to them because I get to lead a beach monitoring program. So because of my background doing some research projects throughout my PLU career, I had that experience that I think they were interested in, so I get to help them out with that. But a lot of it was connections and having volunteered with the group before, so that was how that
now was definitely a practical step. I'm headed to the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the fall to start a program in epidemiology, and I really wanted to take a year to relax and breathe and get my bank account back up a little bit. So I actually came to this job through a connection with Elude, and I think you'll find that they're very eager to help you out. And we worked at a temp agency, and I think temp agencies are a great way to start. They'll do the hard work for you. They'll find a job that you're qualified for, and they'll help you make those connections and get you set up.
Well, mine pretty much started my junior year. I was starting to get a little burnt out, and so I knew that I wanted to take 1 to 2 years off and start to work in the medical field and make sure that that was the right choice for me. So I took a CNA course during J term of my junior year, which is like a 3-week course. It's required for all nursing students. So in my line of work, I constantly get asked if I'm in nursing school. No, I'm not. I'm applying to medical school. But I really just wanted to get a chance to work in the medical field for a while. And so it took me a little while to get a job up north. I was primarily looking in the Seattle area at hospitals. And Seattle Children's is actually expanding quite a bit. Right now we have 254 beds. I got hired on for Building Hope, which both the PICU, the pediatric ICU, and the cardiac ICU, and the ER are moving in end of April, and so they needed to hire CNAs for the ICUs, mostly just to get supplies and to kind of help out the nurses here and there, but you get to see a lot of really cool stuff. For example, I shot a nurse the other day that was taking care of a little 3-week-old baby that had, hyperplastic left heart syndrome, so they're born without a left ventricle, and it's really cool to see like what the surgeons do. Before this child's 3, they're going to have 3 different surgeries, and basically their right ventricle, the remaining ventricle is going to be turned into do what their left ventricle does, and then everything, the blood is going to end up passively diffusing into their lungs. And so you get to see like a lot of really interesting stuff, but I mostly just kind of get supplies and help out with the nurses right now.
What are some of the benefits, or I'd say some of the highlights of what you're doing now?
I can start.
Walk us through a day, or walk us through a typical week, and tell us.
Well, that's not a good question for me, because I'm still technically in orientation, so I'm actually going to start working nights next week, which I'm not excited about, but because my position is 12-hour shifts, I only work 3 days a week. Children's is very green, like so PLU, the moms who love it. I actually get paid to commute to work. There's children's shuttles that are in downtown. I take a shuttle that's from like Roosevelt Commons, kind of by the University of Washington Medical Center, and I take a bus, and they give us a free bus card. So I get paid $3.50 every day I commute instead of paying $7 to park. Yeah, and then again, like getting to see all the nurses, because Children's is also a teaching hospital. A lot of residents from the area, they do their pediatric rotation there, and so I've seen a lot of residents in at least the PICU. They don't, not so much in the cardiac, because they're all kind of the same sort of patient in there.
So are your duties going to change when you switch to nights, or is that just a schedule?
I think because it's a new position, they didn't want to give us too much. So far, like right now, I'm not allowed to chart, and I'm not allowed to do like assessments at the beginning, but I think when they kind of get the hang of us and nurses get used to having CNAs in that role, then, you know, we can try to change and modify what my role will be, at least for the next year or so.
Yeah, I think the biggest highlight of my job is that I'm using things every day that I learned in class and I learned up in the lab, and kind of, it retrospectively makes all those late night studying kind of worth it. And I'll also put a plug in for PLU too, is that another highlight is that you know, I was able to make a pretty good amount, enough money to live off independently right out of school, thanks to the experience I got at PLU. I was initially interviewed for a job making sort of like a lower tier job, making less money. And when my manager saw what instrumentation and what types of techniques I'd done at PLU, they actually recommended me to interview for a position that was higher up, and I got to make a little bit more money because of PhilU. It's always a great thing. Good highlight.
I think highlights of mine will be definitely coming up in the summer when I get to be, outside on the beach all the time. Like, yes, I will get paid to show you all about the Sea Star and tell you how cool it is. And also, I think it's kind of just like a personal, feel-good job because it's doing with the One Wild and Precious life, or the Wild Hope aspect of it. I feel like I'm really putting my passion for marine bio and sustainability to work, teaching other people about why the sound is awesome and what we can do to help care for it, and just, I don't know, so that feels good. And I don't get paid a lot, but I get to do awesome stuff, so it's kind of like, a balance there for sure. And the joy of children. And adults. I can work with all ranges of behavior, so it's kind of fun. It's different all the time too, so that's been interesting.
All right, so tell us about maybe some of the challenges that you've got in your job now, or that you've had in your job, decision making, that.
I'll start. I'll just say it's a little bit hard to transition from science in an academic context and science for the good of the universe to science for money. I think that is definitely a challenge because sometimes when it comes down to the bottom line of my company, it feels like not as, I guess the bottom line is money instead of science. And so that can be a hard adjustment. And that's kind of a bummer.
Definitely for me, I feel like I should have taken some more psychology classes because I work in the ICU. A lot of parents, they're either very uncomfortable and afraid to ask questions because Children's is also a nonprofit. If you can't pay, they still take care of you. So there's a lot of parents that are afraid because of the language barrier or afraid to ask questions. So dealing with all of that, the emotional side of it is, it's really hard to deal with. And our doctors are dealing with, patient care, but you get to focus a lot on the science of it. And so the job is helping me reinforce, what I want to do.
One of the most surprising things for me was that I got thrown into really an educator role. And so it's like, yes, I know all of these wonderful things from my PhD career, but then it's like now, going out and communicating that to others was kind of a big switch and a little bit of a challenge. But with practice and experience comes more comfort. And I feel like I've gotten better at talking to kids, talking to adults, and getting the message of stewardship across pretty well. So that's been interesting and exciting.
So think back, when we were first starting out here at PLU, two-part question. Could you have envisioned what you're doing now as what you wanted, or thought that your career would be, or how is it now from what you thought?
I was going to be a dentist when I started PLU, so still am, but definitely not. Jumped off the bed ready.
Yeah, I guess I'd kind of envisioned sort of soldiering straight into grad school, but as the exams wore on, I realized I needed to take a break. Definitely.
Yeah, same as Bex. I definitely saw myself immediately going into medical school and then working for Doctors Without Borders. I had this great grand idea, and then as it wore on, I was like, I need a break. I need to make sure that this is really what I want to do. So my dream hasn't changed that much. It's just being put on the back burner for right now.
I think when you're chasing your dreams, it's also important to be practical too. And realize when you need to take a job because you need a break, you need money. It's okay to take a little time.
At PLU is a great place to explore that actually beach walks are a lot more fun, I think, than looking at someone's map. I think I can. Yeah. So just taking advantage of all the opportunities that you can and seeing what else is out there and what speaks to you more than, not that, I don't know, I think a lot.
Along with what she said, like there's a lot of positions in the healthcare field that I didn't even know existed. Has anybody heard of a cardiopulmonary perfusionist? Well, they put people on heart and lung bypass, and the schoolings, there's only about 15 schools, but they get paid almost just as well as a doctor, and the schooling's 2 years. I mean, I personally wouldn't want to do it, but a lot of the nurses are looking at that as, oh yeah, what a great job. But there's also respiratory techs or respiratory therapists that work and do, direct patient care as well. PAs do a lot. I mean, PAs can even be, working with a surgeon. You always have to work under the doctor. You don't have to worry about malpractice insurance. I mean, there's a lot of great benefits to looking at everything in the grand scope. There's not just doctors and nurses.
I also think I didn't understand quite yet what entry level meant and how it doesn't mean what it sounds like it means. Is that entry level can actually be really hard to break into. So that's one thing.
Yeah, they need 2 to 5 years of experience.
Yeah,
for an entry
so
level.
that's where the connections come in, and also kind of looking ahead and seeing maybe I want to work as a hospital tech. Go look at what they actually require for their entry level positions, and see if you can learn some of that in your classes. Because it's tough to break into entry level jobs.
Did any of y'all do internships while you were here?
No.
Or well, summer research.
Oh yeah, some.
And then, I don't know if it goes between a research.
I think summer research counts.
I think summer research counts. Yeah, so that way, one affiliate professor as well as an RU program. And so I think those experiences are good if you're more psychology focused. Those kind of things will really get you out into the field and field experience. There's also RU that are less field experience based, but definitely experience is good, and you can get that through paid internships, RU, or definitely volunteering. I think I started as a volunteer research with lab at UWT, and then kind of the connections just snowballed from there. And so worked your way that. But yeah, volunteering is definitely a good way. The other naturalist I actually work with, she used to volunteer with Harbor Wild Watch, and so just like that's a good example of how volunteering can either get you connected with the organization you're volunteering for, or you'll meet people that are like-minded and have similar interests and can maybe connect you somewhere else. So that can be really powerful.
So, you want to go to med school, you want to go to grad school. Are you thinking about grad school? Yeah. Okay. What kind of position do you want to be?
Oh man, that's way too hard. I've shadowed pediatricians, I've shadowed orthopedic surgeons, both worked out in clinics, and it was kind of like, almost felt like a chop shop. Like they're in and out of a patient's room in 15 minutes. I really like the ICU because at least with the nurse-patient ratio, it's 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, and so you get to see a lot more patient care. The doctors are fascinating. Cardiopulmonary thoracic surgeons or heart surgeons do a lot. I'm more interested in trauma and in ER. I really like working crazy long hours and then having more days off. I'm one of those. And so I know one of the nurses that I work with has friends in Harborview, and so I'm hoping that I can get some more connections from her. But primarily for me, when it came to like getting a CNA job, I just took a course my junior year, and then I was working the last 2 years of college, and it was more practical. I didn't do any summer research. I wasn't interested in working in a lab, and so I didn't want to do that. I felt like that hindered me on my first round of medical school applications, and also I applied way too late. Don't take the MCATs in August. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I mean, there's so many different types of doctors. It's too hard.
Okay. And so, once you finish your graduate school, in immunology, what are your goals?
I would actually love to join the Epidemic Intelligence Service, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's basically the CIA for epidemiology. I initially came into PLU expecting to go to medical school, but I actually found out that my interests are more with the populations level of health, and so yeah, I really looking forward to working with an advisor that focuses on things like more chronic diseases like HIV infection, alcoholism, diabetes in vulnerable populations. So I'm excited to get out there.
And I think the position I have right now is a pretty good stepping stone as far as like learning more about all the topics. But now it's like, great, I've just opened the floodgates to like, okay, I'm interested in everything again. And so like finding something that would be meaningful to go or to pursue further in grad school. So I'm just kind of waiting for that click and yeah, so, but I don't mind being a naturalist for a while. I think I could do that for quite a bit, so pretty happy with that.
So yeah, I'm hearing that y'all aren't having much of a career line. You're having a career path, which is what it is. Most people don't do the same thing for 30 years. They change, they see opportunities, their interests change, they learn about careers they didn't even know about, take a right turn, try different things. So yeah, I guess the rest of the year is be open and yeah, and keep your eyes open for things that you might not have thought about before. So what would you suggest that these guys do to get themselves ready to work in the field that you're in? Academically, emotionally, physically, what would your advice be for them?
I'll give you my dad's advice. Study, study, study. That's all.
Yeah. Kind of what I said before, go on websites like for Fred Hutch or for labs around the area or somewhere else, and look at what they want you to know. Because when you're choosing your biology classes, there are going to be classes that you can learn some of the techniques that are going to be able to get you an entry-level job. So I would definitely do that. Physically, I think if you're going to be a scientist, you got to get used to maybe you got to do some gross stuff every once in a while. Working with active urine sometimes, and it's not awesome. So maybe a little, just prepare yourself to be a little grossed out sometimes.
I think if you're going to work in medicine, you have to deal with all sorts of body fluids that you can't be grossed out by anything. I can basically touch anything as long as I have gloves on at this point. I mean, I used to work, while I was in school, I worked at both assisted living facilities and in adult family homes, and you know, it's very humbling when you're working with somebody with dementia and they have feces all over their entire bathroom, they forgot to put, you know, new brief on, you know, but you can basically deal with anything at that point. If you want to, you know, be a, well, technically what I am is just a CNA, you know, it's a very easy course. You know, you can take that while you're in school, they even have weekend or night classes, it's 3 weeks long, and then bam, you can work in a hospital, you can work in a hospice, you know, nursing home. Definitely having a degree helps, even though it's not required for my position. There's not a single person that I work with that isn't in nursing school or has their bachelor's and is applying to med school or PA school. And so they wanted to hire people that, you know, are interested in learning, that we don't want to just, you know, help move patients or, you know, help change their diapers. We are interested in, you know, what kind of medication they're on and what kind of prognosis they have. You know. And so, you know.
I would say temp agencies are a good way to start too. And also, if you're in a job interview, I wouldn't tell them necessarily about all of your wild hopes and dreams.
Don't tell them that you're applying to med school.
Don't tell them. Honestly, don't lie, but just if they ask you where you see yourself in 5 years, maybe don't say graduate school because, yeah, I know my manager, she walked back from an interview and she was like, oh my gosh, she told me that she's going to try to go to graduate school next year. Like, why am I going to waste my time hiring this person? So just keep that in mind in an interview.
I learned that the hard way when I was applying at like front desk positions in doctors' offices. They thought, oh no, like, you know, when they ask where you see yourself in 5 years, they want you to say, you know, toiling away at this job, you know. Yeah. Then they'll hire you because then they, you know, don't have to do as much training for you. So you definitely, that's one thing you might want to fudge a little bit.
Just say that you're just trying to get your foot in the door. Like, just say, like, you're applying for a lab, say, I'm just trying to get my foot in the door in a lab. Yeah, don't say I'm waiting out medical applications.
when you're looking at companies, et cetera, some companies will help pay for graduate school. So that's another thing to think about when you're thinking about which company you're interested in. So I don't know if that's an option in any place you go, but some companies definitely have that. So thinking now and then thinking forward, do y'all have opportunities for professional development where you're working? Tell us about those.
So this morning I was just at an educator to educator conference at the Point Defiance Zoo. We have a specific chunk of our budget, and so as a nonprofit, that chunk goes to our four employees of that group to get better at educating, to learn more about current issues. So today we were learning about the different standards, or the science education standards that schools will be implementing, and how we as an environmental education organization, that's what I'm trying to say, how we can better cater our programs to the schools, and instead of having our programs and this is what we have for you, so it's how can we help you get science into the classroom and get kids excited about environmental education and protecting that. So there's definitely opportunities for us, which is exciting, and I'm looking forward to taking advantage of that as that goes along. So.
I mean, in my company, there would be room for me to move up into higher levels of management in the lab. As far as that, probably not as much. They do have, some companies, they'll have these courses, I guess. We get sent a couple research articles every month that we read, and then we'll sign that we read it based on forensic chemistry analysis. And I guess I could get some credit for that and get a few letters after my name in terms of I'm up to date on research on how people do drug testing. Not as much as I would like, I guess.
Well, there's not really that much in healthcare. I mean, we have to take some online courses for our positions, but when it comes down to it, you really, in order to move up to the next position, if you wanted to be, from CNA to a nurse or anything else, you really just need, more degrees behind, school. So, I mean, my position is pretty much a dead end. There's not really that much but in it. But the majority of people that work as CNAs in hospitals are currently in nursing school or are currently in PA school or are thinking about medical school. You can't really be in medical school and work. It's just not going to happen. But yeah, there's not that much for education.
So we've already mentioned the wild code piece. So was it a component of PLU's educational coach mission, and how did your vocation influence what you're doing now, maybe your career path going forward?
I would say I was absolutely influenced by that. I don't know. Spent a lot of time with the leadership ladies over in SIL, so we talked a lot about that, and definitely got really interested in that, and I think that's what switched my original dentistry plan to actually I'm really interested in sustainability and environment, so I can still get a biology degree, but just cater it more to giving back than the I'm going to be a dentist and make lots of money cards. So
Yeah.
that was definitely there.
I definitely got a lot of the Wild Hope projects interweaved in my classes too. My position right now, though, is definitely more of a stepping stone, or like I said, the practical thing I gotta do to get me on my merry way into making a difference in the world. And that's totally fine. I remember when I started here, I put a lot of pressure on myself to have a 30-year plan and going perfectly from one step to the next, exactly what was coming next. But it's definitely okay to relax and to, just do what you gotta do. And it's okay if you don't have your entire life figured out.
For me, I feel like my journey was more like getting into school and getting out of school. It was more like a maze that I started exactly where I ended up. But when I was in school, it's like I took a literature course and I thought, oh, forget biology, I'm going to be a literature major, I'm going to, be an author. And then I take a virology course and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be an epidemiologist, this is fascinating, I'm going to work in Africa and figure out a cure for AIDS. And then, and then I was interested in sustainability and I went to Madagascar and took this course on biodiversity and natural resource management. And it was fascinating, but when it came down to it, like I was just ultimately more interested in medicine, but I did like all of that weaving in and out. And it's really good to explore all the options. Like if you're interested in the tiniest bit in another career path, take an internship or shadow somebody in that field for a couple days. Like I shadowed a large animal vet for 2 weeks and it was really fun. I got to help with some really big animals, like pulled a colt while we did an x-ray on his leg, but I was ultimately more interested in helping people. And so it's good to explore, all of those options, try to get all of those out because you don't want to be 30 or 40 and you're like, well, I guess I'm stuck being a doctor and you don't like it because you don't get to see your family and because you're working 36-hour shifts. And then you're stuck there because you thought, oh, I did all of this school for nothing. Now I'm stuck here.
All right, well, I'm going to open it up for questions, but do you have any other words of wisdom you want to share?
Take a year off if you can.
It was good for my soul. Yeah, I'm a happier person.
Is there anything that you really wish you would have taken class-wise, looking back for whatever specific job that you have, Ryan? Dang, I really wish I would have taken that at CLU when I was there, or taken advantage of different opportunities.
I wish I would have taken a microbiology here, a biology class where I got some sequencing, some experience with that, because it definitely, I think, would have opened up some more jobs that I could have taken.
For me, part of me almost wishes that I took an E&P just to keep the nursing option open, because now for me it's 4 years of medical school versus 3 years of doing the prereqs and then going back to nursing. So it would have been nice to do A&P, even though it doesn't count towards a biology major. Micro would have been good.
I might have taken a geology class, I think. I've been teaching lessons on erosion, more about rocks, but
besides connections, what are the sort of things that will get you into those entry-level positions? Like what are key things that employers are looking for on applications, or wording, how you describe yourself?
I think they definitely want to see that you know how to work with instrumentation, that you know some microbiological techniques or analysis. That definitely helped me out a lot to just put that, to be able to write down. At PLU, I got to use an NMR and an ICP, all of that. I think the more hands-on stuff you can get, the better in terms of getting that entry level, breaking into it.
more field experience. I can drive a boat. I can, last, inclement weather conditions. I'm okay. I will wear rain boots 24/7. That's a very different experience, but I think just biodiversity experience of quad rats and transects, and I think the chemistry helps in community waters, water quality things.
I think it has to do with playing up. Were you finished? Okay. It really has to do with playing up what aspects they're looking for. You really have to change everything on your resume for each specific position. It's really annoying, but when they can see a formatted resume that it has every job and everything on it, they usually just throw it out. And actually, what helped me get a position at Children's Hospital was the fact that one summer, I think it was the summer after my freshman year, I worked at a summer camp. And I worked with kids. I was an inclusion specialist, so I worked with kids with special needs, and they really liked that fact that I knew how to work with kids in a pediatric setting. So
I was curious, Annie, for you,
from Cover Wildwatch. Do you guys do you teach like a specific age group? And the other part, sorry, is did you take any education-based courses while you were in that year?
We teach K through 8th grade, and I had not had any education experience, so.
You just went with volunteering and
Yeah, basically. So. And then I think the organization I worked with, they did a pretty good job of training. So they, the lead naturalist had been recorded doing all of the lessons she'd done. So we basically, for the first few times we were in the classroom, we were just parroting exactly what she was saying. And then we were able to like do more of our own research and put our own spin on some of the lessons, which I like add like our experience to things. So that was pretty special. But yeah.
You said they're volunteer research labs at UW-Oklahoma. What type of research do you do here at the lab? How long do you volunteer?
So that line has been dropped in my marine bio class. Mike was working with a lady at UW-T who's doing a GUI deck project, and she needed basically people to sit in the lab and filter out all these samples. And so just kind of taking a grunt work position, eventually they're like, all right, you've done this for a few weeks, like, do you want to go out on the boat and collect samples with us? And then I have diving experience, so eventually they're like, you can dive with us if you like as well. So, and then that volunteering led to more. So, and actually, Harper Wildwatch has some volunteer positions opening. I have some flyers if anybody's interested in that. So a little plug there. You can start volunteering this April. So, yeah.
Ask away, this is your opportunity.
I have a question for you, Rebecca. The techniques that you're doing now in your job, would you say that you're more benefited by classes that a bio major can take that's like a chemistry focus, or would you say that it was more like a chemistry class, say like instrumental analysis, or more like a division chem that we might not have access to? What would you say that we more use on a day-to-day basis?
I would say that on day-to-day I use things that I learned in chemistry classes. So I would say I think it's definitely worth it to take an A&M class if you're thinking about doing lab tech jobs. That being said, there are a lot of PLU bio majors that work at my job. And so it doesn't necessarily disqualify you if you have it, but I think analytical chemistry and instrumental analysis are two classes that I use a lot to do my job.
So do you feel like you lost a lot of knowledge in your time off? You're going back to school to have to stay up on studying, or are you afraid that it might be hard to go back into that?
I don't think I have, but I love listening to science podcasts. So while I'm in my lab job, I listen to science podcasts all day. So
I don't know. I mean, it's really about like reading stuff on your own. Like I'm reading this book right now that's from what is his name, Eric Kandel. If you look him up, he won a Nobel Prize in physiology or medicine a while ago, and it's kind of about his life, about the physiology of memory and stuff. I mean, you really just end up educating yourself on stuff that you're interested in. Like, if you're not interested in what you're studying right now, granted, you're probably not going to read about it as soon as you graduate. So, I mean, if you're, maybe you shouldn't be a science major if you're interested in keep reading about it.
I think the best part for me is little kids asking questions. So, do whales puke? They do. And actually, sperm whales puke. Like, it's really valuable stuff. Like, they use it in perfume. So, yeah, exactly. So it's just like constantly kind of have like the basic PLU knowledge for like of all these broad topics that I've covered, and knowing that I can go back to my Campbell bio book and look up some other textbooks.
Oh, it's so long.
I have them. I love them.
Yeah, going back and relearning.
I have a question for Christina. Have you found that being a woman in environmental education has been difficult in any way?
There's a lot of ladies in environmental education, I think, so I feel kind of, I don't know, blending in a little bit. to be a guy in environmental education would probably stand out a little bit more, just because there are a lot of ladies. Although as far as fieldwork goes, I think like the fieldwork part of it, to do that as a lady is pretty awesome, and yeah, so I enjoyed that a lot.
So I'm curious to know if you guys have been proactive about seeking out unofficial mentors or people other than perhaps your direct supervisor to help you or, gain knowledge from, and who those people would be.
Mentors are important. Let people help you.
Definitely, I reach out to former professors and ask them. Also, working any connection that you have, I reached out to my own pediatrician and my own orthopedic surgeon. I was like, yeah, having knee surgery actually helped me out. But talking to former professors also helps quite a bit. They know a lot, not just about their own field, but seeing a lot of students throughout the years and different career paths. And they might have a former student that they could hook you up a connection with.
Don't be afraid to email people. I know I was a little bit nervous that maybe they're going to be too busy, they're not going to want to talk, and I love them. If they're too busy, they won't email you back, and that's not the end of the world. But I think the potential outweighs the nervousness sometimes of asking people if they'll help you out, if they'll talk to you.
Emails are a lot easier than phone calls.
Think of it this way, if somebody emailed you and said, I'm thinking about going to PLU. Could I talk to you about your experience there for a little while? Could you give me some advice? Would anybody in here say no? No, it's the same